Yeah. Hi, everyone. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank Apagen for really arranging this webinar. I could come in and go out a couple of times because there's a lot of parallel things to be done. And since working from home, this is something first time happening, and for us, so there are a lot of challenges that we are facing. But nonetheless, I'm really happy, and I'm so happy to see the whole agenda that you have really covered each and every aspect of ERP implementation, right from requirement gathering to go live. A couple of things that I personally feel, having done two very large scale implementation of Odoo or Odoo based implementation, I would say. Why I said that, I'll probably clarify in a couple of minutes. With Apagen is that the approach that they have once they get to a problem right from business gathering. Typically what happens is when I, as a business analyst, go to a customer asking for requirements, generally most of the customers tend to only share what I call as the happy path. That means this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. What happens if something in the middle does not happen? What happens if all the three parameters are not there? What will happen in those? So that's where the strength of Apagen I have seen come out. They will always ask for those exceptions. It is when you actually probe
Right.
for those exceptions to the customer, that is when the customer starts to talk, and he'll tell you all the exceptions. Most of the things like ERP really start to fail when we have not looked at what the exceptions in the business process flow will be and how to handle those. So that's where Aperture has a very good strength. In fact, Gaurav and Pratik, they themselves are very thorough in trying to find out the exceptions, which has really helped us in most both the large scale implementation that we have done. The last implementation that we are just about to go live in a week from now, it actually will have more than 300,000 end users of Odoo. Now, coming to second point, wherein their approach is, as what they have mentioned in one of the sessions, is that they always try and map the customer's requirement, or they just try and understand what is the underlying requirement. At times what happens is when the customer is conveying, so he is actually saying his wish list, and he's not really coming forth with what the underlying objective of that requirement is. But I've seen a number of times that wherein they have walked the extra mile with the customer, trying to understand what does he want to achieve. Once they get a grip on what he's trying to achieve, they immediately try and map it to the core feature functionality of Odoo and try and give him a solution around that, rather than to go in for customization. That helps in many ways. Of course, GTM, that is my go-to market. Time is of course shortened. Cost of customization is reduced for the end customer, and of course, lesser the customization, lesser the problems. So on the requirement gathering, this is what it is. Then most of the time what happens is that we get the requirements from the customer, we create a document, sign it off, and it's the end. We go back to the customer. Okay, man, after 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 15 days, whatever the time period, depending on the type of project. Sorry about that. My phone keeps ringing all day. So then we go, and that's when it all comes as a surprise to the customer for the first time when he sees the screen. The approach where Apagen actually followed in both these projects for us was that interimly they would actually reach out to the customer, give him a, maybe not a full flown or a full blown demo, but some kind of a feeler or some kind of a initial screens would be shared with the customer, and some kind of a discussion would be engaged, the customer would be engaged into, so that they don't get the whole package in the end. They start getting feelers and they start getting used to the system. So in the end, when the whole system comes up, half the training is done, the users are already very, or at least they're quite familiar with the screens they're going to see. So that really helps in getting the end users acceptance, specifically on the change management part of things. So if you understand what I'm coming from, the change management, the way, because
Mhm.
all the end users are used to do uh, they're used to doing or executing the daily day in day out activities the way they were doing earlier before the system came in or before the system replaces the existing one. or they're too used to a system or a manual process. But when something new comes up, there is always a resistance to change. We human beings, all of us have that. So, but that helps in managing that change management, and the new system that gets deployed gets far more acceptability and easier and smoother acceptability in the minds of end users. So these are a couple of three very unique points that I have observed in the way Apagen has done it. And of course, Odoo being their background. I think that's all from my end. Rest of the things have all been very well covered. So I don't wish to repeat that again.